Hey, good morning. Has a pandemic brought self doubt as a business owner? Trust me, I know exactly what you mean. Stick around. I'll be back with Shani Duncan Falconer from JMMB Group to ask the hard questions to determine the survival of your business. We'll be right back.
Your strategy has to involve your mindset, and your strategy then involves the actions that you take to move you from where you are to where you want to be.
I'll start with what Visa isn't, right? Visa doesn't issue credit card. We don't issue credit. So Visa doesn't do that, which surprises a lot of people.
We'll use a phrase like, well, things changed, but things don't change. People change things. All the legislation that has been passed, somebody advocated for that. And so International Women's Day is to commemorate that history of women making change.
Several of the banks have started to migrate their existing debit card portfolio to chip and pin EMV technology. So the SMEs are going to benefit from a wide range of customers who previously did not have a credit card, but only had a debit card.
Good morning and welcome to the live series Straight Off the Bat, a show that covers the need to revive, survive, and adapt to the new normal of COVID-19. Join us on Thursdays as we speak to individuals across multiple industries who will help you understand financial literacy and education. If you're joining us from Facebook, hey, thanks a lot. We're looking at you. Go follow and like that page now. Actually, you don't even need to follow. Just like. Continue to see content that will help you manage your money. Today, we're discussing survival assessment tips for small businesses in Trinidad and Tobago with Shani Duncan Falconer from the JMMB Group. Shani holds a master's in entrepreneurship from ESADE Business School, Barcelona, Spain, and a BS from the University of Maryland College Park. She has over 16 years of experience working with small businesses in various industries across Trinidad, Jamaica, and the United States. She's also a part-time lecturer at UTech, and most importantly, she's a lover of dancehall music, which we were discussing off air earlier because Mini Man King of the Dancehall is literally the best music video ever. So let's welcome Shani.
Thank you, Pauline. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Awesome. And where in the world are you? Because we are in a world of remote working and remote living. So where are you right now?
I'm in Jamaica right now.
Awesome. Okay, great. This is really a conversation from a Caribbean perspective. So it will be so interesting to hear your perspective, because a lot of times in Trinidad, and as someone who grew up in Barbados as well, there's a saying, only in Trinidad, only in Barbados. Is that something that Jamaicans also share?
Yes, Jamaicans would say only in Jamaica, but I realize living in different countries that it's not only Trinidad, not only Jamaica. It's a Caribbean thing, a worldwide thing. So we're not exclusive.
And that's interesting because there's actually, just going off tangent for a second, there was an article that I saw on Wired, which is a very international journalist. It's a newspaper publishing space, and they did a feature on Jamaica and how difficult it is to be a gamer in Jamaica and the technology side of things. And within the thread of that conversation on Twitter, there was this constant conversation around the difficulty of doing business in Jamaica as well as customs. So can you sort of elaborate a little bit on that in terms of doing business in the Caribbean?
Okay, well, in terms of doing business for Jamaica, I think it has gotten easier in terms of being able to get your tax compliance certificate, being able to register your business, being able to go to TAJ. They've done a lot of those things online right now to make it easier for Jamaicans to start businesses. What happens now is that in terms of bringing in goods and bringing in items, that may be where the problem may lie, where it might be a bit expensive to be able to do that. But once a business knows the requirements and knows their allowance, they're able to work with it. But you really, as a business owner, have to be educated on the different requirements from customs to be able to bring in your goods.
Okay, well that's good to know. So let's take it back and have the conversation around small businesses. And we're not looking at somebody who has an idea. We're not looking at somebody who, just fed up with their boss and they're like, I'm going to start a business. We're talking to specific individuals who've already set up their business, maybe 2-3 years in. And with the current climate that we're in, it's safe to say, and as a business owner myself, you really have to pivot and look and see what is the next movement going forward. So as somebody who is in the position that you're in for over 16 years, what is the important sort of way to look at assessing your business? Because I fall into the category of just doing. You just want to continue doing, and at some point in time you're going to make money. But what would you say to that?
All right, so I would say don't just do. You need to be able to start right, and you need to be able to think big. So what you're going to do is that you want to start by assessing the performance of your business. So you have to make sure that you're aiming to build a successful product, a successful service, and to sell and make your customers happy. So, but what a lot of businesses face is that they face difficulties to get to the next level of success because they don't continuously assess the performance of their business. Just like you are in your life where you think, okay, how do I get to the next level? You have to think about that in your business also. And it's important because reviewing your progress will help you to assess your current market. It will help you to assess new customers, and then it will be able to help you to find new business opportunities. So you really have to have your KPIs, your key performance indicators, from the get-go, and you have to be able to adjust those going forward.
And for me, when I was in the corporate world, I used to hear this thing called KPIs, and I had to Google it because I was, afraid of looking like an idiot. But what tools can you suggest? Any particular approach? Because a lot of times the folks who know don't necessarily share very well to the folks who don't know, because you don't know what you don't know, right? So is there like a specific question you need to ask yourself? Is there a direction in terms of a tool that they should start? Where should they start with this assessment?
Okay, so you, as you said, you have to ask yourself some questions, right? So in terms of, and I'll get into some of these specific KPIs that you could look at, but ask yourself questions like, what is my direction, right? And to look at that, you look at where you want to go within the next 3 to 5 years and how you intend to get there. And that is where, from that one question, some of your KPIs could come in to say, okay, what revenue growth do I want? I'm going to need to track my sales. And an easy way is just to say, okay, you know in your head that you want to make however much million per year, right? So you say, okay, I'm going to make X million per year, and then you set goals to be able to make that X million per year. So just as you would do in your personal life, and you would say, if you were working for a company, you would say, you know what? I really want, in Jamaican dollars now, so I really want to make 10 million a year. You set that same goal for your business and say, this is what I want to make in the first year. This is what I want to make in the second year. And you have realistic milestones and benchmarks to be able to reach that, right? So that's one question that you might ask yourself. And then another one is, what resources do I require to succeed? So yes, there's the financial, but then there's skills, there's assets, there's relationships that you need to build, and also technical competencies, and what facilities do you need to compete? So you have to ask yourself all of these specific questions, which would usually now translate and go into a business plan. But once you start asking yourself these things, building out a plan is so much easier.
You know, it's interesting hearing this conversation now, because when I did start my business, I had these goals, and in hindsight, they were extremely unrealistic. And we are in a time of toxic positivity where it's just like, you just need to work hard and you just need to keep grinding, and don't worry, you'll get success. But what questions, or maybe sort of direction, that a small business owner needs to go to in order to identify realistic goals?
All right. So part of what we do in the resource center, as you say, that a lot of our clients come into JMMB. So I am head of JMMB's SME Resource Center. And at our resource center, we really help our clients through their entire life cycle. So we're set up in Jamaica, and we're also set up in Trinidad. So when clients come to us, we realize that they have these big, beautiful plans, business plans, but we have to now scale it back and to say, okay, you really need to be realistic about this. If you only grew 2% last year, you're probably not going to grow by 200% next year just to get this loan. So we have to see what is really feasible. We look futuristic because we see, okay, maybe you may have these invoices, you may have accounts that are going to come in, contracts that you have, but then we have to be very realistic and say, no, let us scale back. This is not going to be a growth. And don't panic about it as a business owner. Be realistic. Take your growth slowly, because most likely within the first 5 years, that is what happens. After 5 years, then you may see your growth start to pick up, and you may be able to get additional investors or loan, grants, anything else that you need. But be realistic, knowing that those first 5 years are going to be the roughest years for you.
And for someone who may have this vision and this dream, and keep looking at videos and listening to podcasts, thinking that they're going to change this entire dynamic industry that they're about to enter in, what is the best way to drive that reality to that person? What exactly is that type of conversation do you have with that person? Because it's one thing saying, you're not going to just go from 2% growth to 200% growth, because a lot of people say, well, you've never run a business, you don't know what I'm going to do. What would your response be to that?
All right. So I would really want that business owner to assess the current state of their business. So what you would do is that you would either take a top-down or a bottom-up approach. So you're in an economy, you're in an industry, and you're in your business. So you have to first look at the external economy, and right now, what is happening in the external economy? Right now, we know COVID is happening, but is your business going to survive? And how is it going to survive within this environment that we're living in now? Right now, 92% of small businesses have said that they have suffered negative effects as a result of the pandemic. And about 5% say that they haven't. So that would be like the pharmacies, supermarkets, online shopping. So what are you going to do to make sure that your business is going to survive? So after you look at the external economy, you look at the industry you're in, and you have to find a way to become competitive within that industry. You can't say you're coming in and you're going to do everything like everybody else. What is your value proposition? What is that one thing that you're going to do different from everybody in the industry that will get you clients? And then after you've looked at the industry, now you take a deeper look into your business. How are you going to grow your business? How are you going to make it work? So you don't just come in and say, I'm going to start this great business, I'm going to grow within this certain period of time. You have to look at all the factors: external economy, industry, and then your business.
I, as someone in the marketing space, I've encountered a lot of individuals who, it's not for lack of a great idea, but who's your audience? This idea of this is going to happen, but your customer is not the same. None of us are the same post pre 2020, when we got that, hey, stay home, you're not going anywhere. And that's something that, what you mentioned earlier about creating realistic goals have to be incorporated. And then the KPIs, which I want to talk about, identifying some of those KPIs. We're going to answer that question right after the break. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is the Straight Off the Bat show, a show that covers the need to revive, survive, and adapt to the new normal of COVID-19. Today, we're discussing the survival assessment tips for small businesses in Trinidad and Tobago with Shani Duncan Falconer from JMMB Group. She holds a master's in entrepreneurship from the ESADE Business School, Barcelona, Spain. You're not going to find these conversations anywhere else, so be sure to like and follow us on LinkedIn so you don't miss a single live show. And if you have any questions, especially if you're a small business owner like me, don't forget to slide into the comments and we will ask Shani, because we have her time now. Let's take advantage of it. If you missed it earlier, we were discussing KPIs, which is something I learned, acronym Key Performance Indicators, in the business world that translates that every single small business owner should have a plan. If you don't have a plan, what are you really doing? Truly, what you're doing. So let's look at some of those KPIs that Shani could share with us on when it comes to a business owner and survival tips in the current world we live in. So Shani, give us some insight on that.
All right. So for KPIs, I would say to focus on 5 KPIs. One would be your revenue growth, where you're tracking your sales. You're tracking your sales monthly. So that's one KPI that I would focus on. The next one would be revenue concentration. So revenue concentration is ensuring that your revenue is coming from multiple customers. You don't want to have one client, because if that one client goes bad, your whole business goes bad. So you need to have as many customers as possible. The next one I would look at is income sources, and that is revenue per client, per service, to make sure that you're getting as much revenue from each client as possible. The other one, number 4, is profitability over time. And your profitability is going to look at your income minus your expenses. So what are you getting in versus what are you spending? The other important one that I would look at is working capital. And working capital is your current assets minus your current liabilities. And you can also look at that as a ratio, which is your current assets over your current liabilities. And when you calculate your current, your working capital ratio, you would want to come out at a 1.2 to the best to have a 2. So you have to look at those specific KPIs. There are lots of KPIs, but I would say that those 5 are the top ones as a business owner to make sure that you're doing well on.
You mentioned some ratios, 1.2 and 2. What does that mean?
All right. So if your current assets, you want your assets to be more than your current liabilities. So a ratio 1:1 would mean that your current assets is the same as your current liabilities. but you want your current assets to be more. So a ratio of more than 1 up to 2 would mean that you have 2 times your current assets than your current liabilities, which is what you want as a successful business owner.
Okay, good to know. I'm making notes for the next time I have a meeting with my accountant. So within the current state that we're in across the world, because I believe Jamaica is also under curfew.
Yes. Yes.
Right. So, when it comes to behavioral patterns, the idea of going to buy clothes, Macy's had a sale and it was so underwhelming in the US. They started to sell dresses for $5 because where are we going to go? Right? We have nowhere to go. And if we do, it's like from the waist up, guilty. And when it comes to specific industries, obviously some suffer more than others, as you mentioned earlier, with the pharmacies and so forth. So what are some of these signs that a business owner can look for in terms of their recovery? Because it's easy to fall into this trap of, well, I can't control what's happening. I'm going to fail. What is the point? What are some of these signs that you could share with a business owner?
Okay. So when looking at recovery right now, most businesses are trying to recover. The first thing, some businesses mightn't even be open as yet. So the first thing you're going to look at, has your business opened back up? Or is it that, yes, is it that no, it's not going to open back up for X amount of months to years? Or is it that, yes, there is pent-up demand for your product and clients are going to be at your door once you're able to open it back up? So 1, has your business opened back up? 2, is there pent-up demand for your product? Are clients at your door now or calling you to say, okay, when can I get these goods? Have you now started to come out of the red? Are customers now purchasing your product? Number 4, have you started selling off old inventory? Because we know that when businesses were closed, nothing was happening. So if your business is now recovering, you would be now selling off old inventory and being able to purchase new inventory. Have you come to a point now where you can rehire staff? Is that now something you can do? Because we know that a lot of layoffs happened during this past year. So are you at a point now where you're rehiring staff? Are you able to enter new markets? And then are you able to target new customers? So those are some of the key signs I would look at to say, you know what, my business is in the recovery process. These weren't things that I was able to do previously, but I'm opening back up. There's pent-up demand. I'm selling off all inventory. I can purchase something now. I'm looking to rehire. Those are some of the points I would look at to say, okay, the recovery is starting.
Okay, good to know it. Shout out to Desiree. She is an avid watcher of the Straight Off the Bat show. So great to see you. So when it comes to the survival assessment, right? At the risk of being negative, Nancy, there comes a point in time where your business will not be necessary. Thinking about the back in the day when you had to tap the TV and the old antenna and you had to go outside and make the movements on the roof. We're no longer doing that. We just want to figure out how this internet is going to get any faster. So as a business owner who's watching this now, what difficult questions do you have to ask yourself to identify, this is not the next step forward. I need to have an exit strategy.
Right. So what you're going to need to do is to, 1, assess the financial damage. So you're going to need to know how deeply your business was affected. And if you realize that you cannot recover from that financial damage, it's going to come to a point where you're going to have to say, you know what, either I need to pivot or I need to pivot completely and go into something else. Another thing that you'd have to do is to now, if you're going to do a slight pivot, you need to develop now and think, okay, what is my timeline to rebuild? Or what is my timeline to open up a new business and to be able to start making money? Because we have to deal with the hard truth that some businesses have come to an end. It happens. It happens that either they close or if they have done well, they're able now to go on to the stock exchange or to be acquired by an investor. But businesses do end, and we have to make that hard decision of when to close. So coming out of COVID, well, still in COVID, but assess your financial damage and develop a timeline for either rebuilding or for rebuilding a new business. And then think about taking a second look at that first business plan you had and how you change that plan to become efficient or into a totally new plan.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because I did have a business that, I mean, up to now, I attached my identity to that business. So in my mind, it was a colossal failure. But I'm learning after that it was a reflection of the time and so forth. But at the point in time that it was failing, it was self-identification, some therapy. And, you know, when you hear things from an external perspective, you tend to trying to fight the facts, right? So any words of advice to someone who may just have been lost in terms of maybe entrepreneurship isn't for them? Because I find a lot of times too, people just didn't find the right job, so they then go start a business. And when I have discussions around, okay, maybe you need to pivot in this space, they're like, no, I just want to keep going on to this. So is there this line based on your experience that you could say, okay, you know what, maybe entrepreneurship isn't for you?
Okay, so I mean, that kind of comes into a question that it's my first topic when I teach entrepreneurship, and it is an entrepreneur made? Can you make an entrepreneur, or does it have to be internal? Do you have to possess certain what we would call personal entrepreneurial characteristics to be able to be an entrepreneur? And one of the things you just said, that you felt your business failed and you attached yourself to your business. A lot of small businesses fail, but you need to know when to maybe move on to something else, not to give up on entrepreneurship, because if you have those innate characteristics, for instance, that you're a go-getter, you try to make sure that everything is put in place. You're resilient. An entrepreneur needs to be resilient. You have to have those entrepreneurial characteristics to know that, yes, this has happened, it has failed, but you move on to the next. And also you have to have certain supporting enabling factors, which are that you have to look at the economy that you're in. Will it make or break your business? Do you have that family support for your business? Do you have that financial support? So a lot of times we look at the finances, we look at the business plan, but we have to look internally to say, am I a real entrepreneur who can make it? And do I have those supporting factors to be able to make it? So it's personal with being an entrepreneur, not always all about the business plan and all about financials and the bank.
Yeah, it's so interesting to hear people perception of being an entrepreneur who from the external perspective, there's this glamorous take on it. I just laugh because I'm like, I wish you were sitting down next to me on the floor as I'm going through my Excel spreadsheet to send this stuff before my taxes due. I wish I could but it wouldn't make for good TV. So, but when it comes to this idea of survival assessment, let's talk about free and minimal cost resources for small business owners, because there's a lot of skills that a lot of us have to just be able to adapt to survive. So I don't know if you have some suggestions on that, but we're going to cover that right after the break.
But that was like my first experience with money. Very, very first experience.
I've been in banking since I was a teenager.
Welcome back to Straight Off the Bat, show that covers the need to revive, survive, and adapt to the new normal of COVID-19. Today, we're discussing survival assessment tips for small businesses in Trinidad and Tobago with Shani Duncan Falconer from the JMMB Group. She has a master's in entrepreneurship, and she's also a lover of dancehall. I must say, the dancehall movement has influenced Barbados soca, and it is so clear its influence in reggaeton as well. Do you see those parallels?
I do, but I still love my, old school dancehall. So it's not the new age dancehall. It's that old school.
But I mean, you must say, Jamaica's influence on music is worldwide, and I can't stand up in one place if I hear some kind of dancehall happening in the background. There's something there. All right, guys. So if you just join us, you're not going to find these conversations anywhere else. Be sure to like and follow. You can head over to YouTube. We just crossed the 200 mark. Yeah. Subscribers. Thank you so much, guys, for supporting the show. Really appreciate your feedback. And I see Desiree has a comment. We're going to address that just now. But let's talk about resources, because with any survival, you're going to have to create new skill sets. Is there some advice on possible resources, free or minimal cost, that small business owners can head over to learn about pivoting and recovery of their business?
So I think you said earlier, people do a lot of YouTube and look for searches in terms of, how can you really change your business? How can you pivot? Just in terms of talks that they are out there, just looking at something like TED Talks, you can go and you can search, and there are lots of videos that will help you in terms of how do you pivot. But in terms of having some free educational software, there are things like, to work in your business, there are things like Profit Books. So that's a free online simple accounting software tool to use. Once you're in business, it lets you create your invoices, track expenses, manage inventory. So looking at that on the accounting side. And then in terms of the marketing side and getting your business out there, there are programs like Constant Contact, which are free, where we have free versions of it that you can use and you can reach out to your clients. And then after you use the free version, there are basic plans, like for 20 US that you can use. That's about 136 TT that you can use to make sure that you keep in contact with your clients. So you have to go and research these tools, but there are lots of tools out there that are minimal. There's also Business in a Box. Business in a Box has every single template that you would need as a business owner. I've used it extensively, and it's an annual cost, but it's well worth it. So there are tools that you can use. Then another thing you have to do, you have to partner with a bank that gives you all these tools, and that's what JMMB does. So recently we started an accelerator program, and within that accelerator program we took on 24 clients, whether they were JMMB clients before or new clients. We took on 24 clients, and what we're going to be doing is to help them grow. Within 2 years, we're ticking with them for 2 years. So all those tools, JMMB is now giving them. So we have a growth wheel assessment for them. We have coaching sessions. We have access to our ecosystem, which includes marketing companies, taxation companies, to help them. We have assistance in creating plans, targeted practical workshops, our CEO roundtables, and then the skills and knowledge to attract debt, equity, financing, and grant funding. So if you don't have a bank that you're partnering with and who is giving you this access and these tools, I think you know that you need to come to a bank that will help your business grow.
Awesome. We'll make sure to put some links and tag the JMMB Group LinkedIn page and Facebook page for those who are interested to check it out. Because is this something you're going to do in cohorts?
Yes. So we just started our first cohort, and we started it off with a governance workshop. So that's what we think the first thing is. These businesses really need to know that they need to have an advisory board. They need to have a committee. They need to be able to have the right people within their companies. And we have, within the first cohort, we have some micro, we have small, and we have medium. So it's a really good mix. We have Trinidad companies and Jamaica companies. So we're bringing it into the Caribbean to make sure that we have that cross-border and everybody is able to see what's happening in Trinidad, what's happening in Jamaica, and how linkages can be made.
Awesome. And I could also attest to what you said earlier about YouTube, because, as much as we're a content creation company, my business, we had to pivot because of the lockdown. And a lot of our clients would look at in-person events, and we shifted across to live. And guess how I learned about live streaming? YouTube.com. And that's how we're able to not just have these great shows like Straight Off the Bat, but to connect with people across the world like you in Jamaica right now. And let's look at Desiree's question. She had a question about SMEs applying for grants. So she wants to know, is it a good idea for SMEs to apply for the SME grant at the ministry to assist with survival?
Definitely. If you're able to access those grants, I think, as Desiree brought up grants, when the budget was read for Trinidad, grant facilities through NEDCO are being made available to small and micro businesses with an annual revenue of less than 1 million. And they will, and it will be extended until 2022. So I think grants are a great way for small micro businesses to be able to grow. But one thing you have to realize is that grants are often very specific. So don't think that you're going for a grant and you're going to take this money, do whatever you want with it. No, usually it is very specific that you need to use the grant for X, Y, Z. And while you have to use that money, being able to apply and the criteria that you need to fulfill for a grant, you need to make sure that you meet that criteria, and you need to make sure that you use the grant money as stated in the contract.
Oh, great question. I had no idea. So I am making notes. Head to NEDCO. All right. So when it comes to, we spoke about earlier looking at asking certain questions when it comes to maybe the exit strategy, knowing if this is the right place and pivoting. And you mentioned, looking at your books, but a lot of times as an entrepreneur, you have to have a sense of delusion. It just is, it's a must, right? And when it comes to the financial things, obviously that's black and white. Is there a particular sort of figure or a direct question that you can ask yourself to say, okay, this is what I need to do in order to pivot and go in this direction money-wise? or this is where I need to go to get a grant, or this is what I need to exit? Like, is there a particular figure? Like, how do you have that conversation, which technically with a financial advisor? But if you don't have that, is there a particular number that we should be looking at?
So there's not a particular number because every business is different, and you will know once you're in the red what your circumstances are, and if you will be able to get out of that debt within a certain period. So if you know that within a certain period you're unable to survive, you're going to need to do something else to survive. I'm not saying maybe you keep your business, you keep your business until it can go into recovery stage, but you need to maybe start another business in the meantime or do something else to make sure that you as a person, as an individual, for your family, make sure that you survive within the period. And then when it's time, you can now open back up. But your financial decisions that you make, you have to look at your expense management. So at this period, are you not earning an income, and are your expenses much higher? And if that is what is happening, and you're just spending money on facilities, on staff, and not making enough income, you're going to have to make that choice on whether to stay in the business or whether to move into a new business and probably use those resources in a new business. Look at alternative business lines, using your assets for complementary business to bolster the revenue of your core business. So it's not a specific number you look at, but it's a timeline to say, you know what, during this timeline, I cannot survive and I'm going to have to pivot, or I'm going to have to go into a new business.
Yeah, that's real hard. I mean, just the idea alone is giving me some sort of heart movement, because that's very heavy for any entrepreneur to look at. And for those who may have been, who have joined us late, let's just talk back a little bit about the importance of assessing the performance of your business. Why is it important, especially now?
It's important because of the environment, and it's important because of the climate that we're in. And we need to be able to know how our business is progressing, to be able to know, are we doing well? So reviewing your business will help you to assess your current market. It will be able to help you assess your customers, and it will be able to help you to find new business opportunities. And those are the things that you need to do. So questions you might be asking yourself is, what is my direction? What are my markets? How do I gain a market advantage? What resources do I need to succeed? What business environment am I competing in? And then how am I measuring the success of my business?
One of the common approach that I've seen to businesses in Trinidad and Tobago is food. And it's something that obviously with lockdown, we for those, who are watching this, who may not be in Trinidad and Tobago, we're going through phases of our state of emergency, and come October 11th, people can actually go outside and eat because you weren't able to. But food is such a huge core factor to businesses in Trinidad and Tobago. And a lot of the times we are, to me, duplicating something that's already there. We love the fried foods. We love, putting up a double stand. And looking at the survival assessment in that space, what advice would you give to that person? Because we're also a very cash-based society. So I find that we think that we will invest a lot of money in a food truck, but once we have that couple $100s of styrofoam from the styrofoam food that we just make, we think it's a success. What advice would you give to that person who is gung-ho on this food space that is so saturated?
Right. So if that is where your talent lies and that is where you really want to go, you can go into it. You can go into food. But what I would say at this point is how are you going to make it different? Right now, you have to be in delivery. It is not about brick and mortar anymore. So you would have to say, all right, you know what? I'm going to have more of a delivery component to this. Maybe you have an online component where they're able to check off everything that the client will be able to say, okay, I want this, I want that, and to be able to customize a menu for themselves. So you have to think outside of the box. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to open up a food business now. No, there are a lot of them out there. You need to think, what will make this different? Is it that you're going to have a delivery every Sunday and you're going to have these wonderful menus that nobody else is going to have? Are you going to have a fabulous online interface? Where we're really going now is online. Everybody is ordering everything online. Food is no exception. So you have to think about those things and not just come with another food store. You have to think, what will make this exceptional and different?
Agreed, because I would love foods that are not fried, as well as some vegan options for anyone who's out there. Are you listening to me? All right. So let us go on a quick break. We're actually going to come back and look at the biggest challenges that businesses encounter after the first couple of years, especially when we're looking at tax exemptions, guys. I know you know what I'm talking about. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to Straight Off the Bat, a show that covers the need to revive, survive, and adapt to the new normal of COVID-19. Today, we're discussing survival assessment tips for small businesses in Trinidad and Tobago with Shani Duncan Falconer from JMMB Group. She holds a master's in entrepreneurship and has over 16 years of experience in the financial world. So we're going to try and squeeze out as much information as possible. You're not going to find these conversations anywhere else. So make sure to like and follow us on LinkedIn so you don't miss a single live show. And be sure to comment any questions. We're going to close off in a bit. If you're just joining us, we are looking at the survival assessment tips. And more specifically, I want to have a conversation about the biggest challenges or misconceptions when it comes to small businesses. Because when you have an idea and you are so delusional that it's going to work, guilty, you just think about the work. So based on your experience, Shani, can you give us advice on where, we need to go in terms of that misconception that we may encounter?
Okay. So when I work with clients who have small businesses, what I sum it down into is that small business owners need to think big from the beginning. They're not thinking big enough. So what's going to happen is that they're going to say, you know what, as I move along, let me get tax. Let me become compliant with my taxes, maybe 2-3 years down. Or maybe let me get a bank account for my business in the next 3 to 5 years. Or let me go and register my business after I've been in business for 4 years. No. Think big. Think that your company is going to be big. So when you start out, do what you have to do. So you start out, you register your business. You get your tax compliance certificate. You make sure that you're paying your taxes, even if you are nil. You make sure that you're registered and you're paying. So that now when you've been doing all of these things and you now need a loan, you're able to get a loan, make sure as soon as you start your business bank account. Set up your business for success. Do not set it up that 5 years down the line, you're going to be calling and saying, oh my gosh, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. Think big when you start your business, and that's the key to success.
I am so guilty because with the digital age that we're in, you think, well, I could do this, I don't want to pay somebody to do this. I could do this. And then you fall into a trap of never having time to do anything, including sleep, which, guys, don't ever not sleep.
Yeah. And
FYI.
As you say that, it's like you can't do everything yourself. No, as a business owner, you cannot do everything for yourself. You need to have persons on your team who if you're not an accountant, do not try to be an accountant. If you're not great at marketing, get somebody who's great at marketing. There are a lot of different tools and different needs that we have that we do not. One person does not contain all of that. So you have to build a great team around you.
Agreed. And a lot of the times, because of media, we see names like Jeff Bezos, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, thinking that this one person is great. And we don't see the massive amount of people behind them. And this idea of, thinking big is so important, because you may say, well, this is not gonna go very far, so whatever. And in that same sort of approach, you have a lot of Trinidad and Tobago that is not banked, right? So we are very cash. We love the idea of holding cash, and we also fall into the trap of commingling. So we have a business on the side, could be a side hustle for 3-4 years, making a decent amount of money, as well as we have our, sort of safety with a full-time job. What advice would you give to that person when they're in between those two things, because they're taking that cash and depositing it into their personal account?
All right. So I would say, I would love for you to open up a business bank account. But if you haven't reached that stage as yet, open up another personal bank account and put all of your business money into that account. Do not commingle your personal and your business. The best thing to do would be to open a business bank account. But if you think that's not feasible for you, have a separate account for it at all times. Do not mix your money, because you want to know, really, is your business doing well or not? Because if you're dropping it into your personal account, you may be like, I have a lot of money, but then when you really look at it, you might be spending more than your income is from that business. So you really need to figure it out by having a separate account. And then if you're looking to get loans, you're looking for investors, they can see now, oh, this is what you've been making specifically from your business. Yes, I can invest in this. An investor doesn't want to have to go, oh no, you look in your bank account and say, okay, no, but this was for food, this wasn't your business, and to have to go through and sort through everything. So just keep it separate.
And you mentioned earlier about the tax situation, right? Because what if you're not making enough to be taxed? Why is it important to have that registration as a business and to declare that?
So even when you're trying to do anything, when you're trying to open up a business bank account, when you're trying to get a loan, when you're trying to get grant funding, they're going to look at if you're tax compliant, because that shows that you're serious about your business and that you're doing it right and you're paying the taxes that you're supposed to. And it also shows credibility for your business when you're tax compliant, when you're registered. So, and then there are also certain benefits from being tax compliant that you're able to get back at the end of the year. So don't think about it as, oh my gosh, I'm just paying taxes. But depending on what type of business you have and what you're expensing, you're able to possibly get money back in from being compliant.
That's great advice. And the idea of thinking big, I can't help but wonder, there are a lot of people who don't think in that way, and they're like, well, I'm fine with the money I'm making now. I'm fine with not having to declare tax. Like, what would you tell that person? Because a lot of times people are okay with just enough.
Okay, so you have to be clear in your intentions and in your goals. Do you have a side hustle or do you have a business? If you have a side hustle and you don't ever want it to be more than a side hustle, fine. But if you are saying, you know what, I want a business that will grow, you have to think big and you have to do everything needed to make that business big. So what's your mindset? Side hustle or big business? For me, it would be big business. So once you set your intention and set your mindset, you know where to go.
I think that's such a great point, because you can also get caught up in, this idea of I'm gonna keep doing, but I'm seeing gray hairs and I don't want to keep doing this for the rest of my life. At some point in time, I need like a very, very, very long vacation. So thank you so much, Shani, for sharing your insight. And is there any last words of encouragement to individuals who may be, feeling a little down? Because a lot of times too, as an entrepreneur, people don't understand your desire, your delusion to be successful and to build something great. What advice would you give to that business owner?
All right. So just in terms of what I was saying before, think big. Think about what you want for your business. And then another thing is, we know that during this time, some people may be overwhelmed and may not be able to work in their business. So while you're not able to work in your business, work on your business. Work on the strategies that will make your business great. So you're not working in it, you can't do the day-to-day that you've been doing. Work on it to be able to make it better. Don't become depressed. Just keep pushing forward. Your business is going to be big and it is going to be great.
Awesome advice, Shani. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. And if you want to check out the discussion, JMMB Group and the cohort with the entrepreneurship, we're going to tag the JMMB Group's page in the comments. But in terms of the next cohort, that will be next year?
Yeah, so we will try to bring in a cohort every year, but the program is 2 years. But next year, we're going to look at how we bring in another cohort.
Awesome. Okay, great. That's awesome to hear. Thanks again. And shout out to Shani Duncan Falconer for joining us today and sharing insight into survival assessment tips for small businesses in Trinidad and Tobago. Click for the links in the comment section and sign up to be notified for the next live show. If you have somebody who is going to benefit from these discussions and they're not on LinkedIn and they're not on Facebook, yes, I know these people exist. Head over to YouTube and subscribe, and you will be notified when we go live, which usually are on Thursdays at 10 a.m. As always, be sure to like and follow our page, and I will see you next time. See you soon, guys. Bye.